My guest today is the coach of the USC basketball team. They got things kicked off last night with a great start, 66-59 win over Cal State Northridge. Kevin O'Neill, ladies and gentlemen, give it up.
Thank you.
How are you, Coach?
I'm doing good, thank you. Appreciate that.
Good. Well, before we get into this season, wanted to ask you a little bit about last year. You guys ran into a great team in the qualifying round against Virginia Commonwealth. You guys actually gave them one of the tougher games that they had in that tournament. Right. What do you make of last season's team, and in particular that game, in terms of maybe what could have been accomplished with a different seed or just a different play-in game?
Well, I think, we hit a team that was, destined for greatness, really, getting to the Final Four. I think if we'd have hit a different seed at a different time or played a little bit better in the second half of the game, we may have been able to go far. I don't know if we had enough depth to go really far, but we had a team that overachieved and played hard and played together, and we had a first-round draft choice in Nikola Vucevic, so that was a monumental thing for us.
Speaking of depth, you guys, coming into this season, you lost Nikola, as you just mentioned,
right.
Alex Stevenson, Marcus Simmons, Dante Smith, and Gio Fontaine might be out the entire season with an ACL tear.
He's got an ACL. We're going to try to get him back. He wants to get back. I think that's going to be tough to do. So if you look at it, we're returning 11% of our scoring, about 5% of our rebounding, and about 5% of our assists. So we got a whole bunch of new faces over there to play basketball with.
Well, on that happy note, what are your expectations for the season this year? What are you thinking the team is capable of?
I really don't know what they should be. Like I've told our team the entire time, because we got so many new guys, what we want to do is get better all the time. We want to try to improve on a daily basis. And if we do that, we'll have a chance to win games. Now, we have a challenging schedule. We're going to have some ups and downs. Anytime you're starting two sophomores, two freshmen, and a junior that's never played here before, and the rest are freshmen and sophomores, you're going to have some challenges.
This is Trojans Corner. My guest, Kevin O'Neill, basketball coach of the USC Trojans. I'm Andy Kamenetzky, co-host of the Land of Lakers blog at ESPNLA.com and ESPNLA On Air on 710 ESPN. What would you say right now are the greatest strengths and the greatest areas of weakness for this team at one game in?
I think if I had to pinpoint our best strengths so far, and it'll get a lot better, our defense was really good last night. Our biggest weakness right now is we don't have the experience to attack. Like Northridge junked up the game, 1-3-1, pressing, 2-2-1, all that. So we don't have the experience or the depth right now at the guard position to attack that until these freshmen learn the game a little bit.
Is that something that can be compensated over the course of a season as you have more time with them, or is that purely a personnel thing?
Well, we're going to get better, but we really, without Gio being in there, we don't have a secondary ball handler, so it puts a lot of pressure on Mo Jones. And then what has to happen is Byron Wesley and Alexis Moore, who are freshmen, have to step up and get better along the way for us to improve in that area.
I'm going to get to all those guys in a second, but with this being the first year of the Pac-12, how does that change, if anything, the way either you prepare for a season, pace out a season, try to plan for it?
It's no real difference to me because we're playing 18 games just like we were last year. It'll be the last year of really travel partners because of the new TV contract next year. We'll start playing on different days. So it's nothing different this year. It'll get a little bit different next year because you'll have some home and aways versus travel partners, home and away.
There's been a lot of controversy in terms of different teams in football switching conferences and the way everything's getting realigned. And there hasn't been as much attention paid to how it affects college basketball. From your perspective, does it make anything better, worse?
Well, I don't think it really matters what anybody in basketball thinks because all the decisions are being made based on football and money,
right?
Which I understand. In our case, we got a great college basketball contract for our league because of football. We were able to leverage football to get basketball. So I don't care how we do it. I'm all for it, being football driven, and we just got to go along for the ride.
How would you assess the Pac-12 this year as a whole in terms of strength of conference and the competition?
I think we'll end up having 5 teams in the NCAA tournament and 2 or 3 in the NIT. To me, the teams that are at the top of the heap, obviously, are the ones that have the most people returning. I think Cal's the best team. I think UCLA, Arizona, and Washington are all right there, and I think Oregon's very good because those 5 teams return a lot of players. After that, I think there's a bunch of us in there that whoever gets better during the year might have a chance to play in the postseason.
Is it too early to ask you if you consider SC one of the 5 maybe in the NCAA or one of the 3 in the NIT?
I think it depends how we progress, how our young players progress. The schedule we're facing is so good early. You know, we're playing a bunch of teams that have 4 or 5 starters returning in the non-conference. I think we're ranked overall number 2 in the country for schedule. So what we have to do is get some experience early and then try to get ourselves to the Pac-10 tournament as an improved team and maybe try to win the tournament and get there. So that's got to be our goal going through the year.
There's 2 ways essentially that a difficult out-of-conference schedule can affect you. It can make you a better team or could put you behind the 8 ball.
Right, and you know the chances are with Gio we'd have been very, very capable. Without him, it's going to be a maturation process for these young guys, but I mean, you got to put your big boy pants on and play games, and that's what we're going to do.
You're watching Trojans Corner right before USC Washington today, homecoming at USC. I'm Andy Kamenetzky, co-host of the Land of Lakers blog at ESPNLA.com and co-host of ESPNLA On Air on 710 ESPN. My guest, Kevin O'Neill, head coach of the USC basketball team. Now, from what I'm hearing in terms of the way he's described, I've yet to see him play, but Dwayne Dedmon is this ridiculously unique player, 7 feet tall. He can run the floor. He can shoot. He's like if a chemist had created a basketball player, we'd have Dwayne Dedmon. But at the same time, he didn't really play any high school basketball at all and barely played at his JUCO before transferring in. What do we have in this player right now?
What we have is, in my mind, an eventual lottery pick, whether it's this year or next. For instance, last night, he scored 2 points his whole high school career.
2 points.
And then last night he has in 25 minutes, 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And you know, he's a guy that's going to make huge strides as he gets better and better. He just doesn't really know how to play. And when he does learn how to play, he's going to be a terror. But it's going to take him a little time. He's going to have some ups and downs.
Is he getting by more now on just natural athleticism, or is it instincts? Do you think he has a high IQ?
I'll tell you what he does. He has a really, really off-the-charts basketball IQ. Like, we're actually going to play him going forward some at the 3 spot with 2 other big guys because that's having our best 5 players on the floor. He can learn any spot, anytime. So he's got instincts, he's got athletic ability, he just doesn't have experience.
In terms of specific weaknesses beyond inexperience, is there anything that you'd say still needs work?
I think his whole game needs work, but he shows a smattering of greatness every single day. And you know, we've had about 16 or 18 pro teams in to see him already. We got another bunch of them coming tomorrow. We hope he stays around for a second year.
Wow. What about his health? He's had issues coming in.
You know, he broke his hand. So he just got a cast off on Wednesday, played the whole preseason with a cast on, and didn't miss any practice, no competition, nothing. So he's a guy that's, you know, going to be a special player someday. It's just not there yet.
Everybody remember the name Dwayne Dedmon. Apparently this is a kid you all need to be watching, because if you don't watch him this year at SC, there is a chance you might not be watching him next year at USC. My guest, Kevin O'Neill, head coach of USC's basketball program. I'm Andy Kamenetzky, co-host of the Land of Lakers blog at ESPNLA.com and 710 ESPN. Maurice Jones, you talked about him earlier and the pressure that's on him to help carry this team.
Right.
He's also switching to point guard. He's more of a natural 2, correct?
Yeah, he is. Even though he's only 5'5", he's a natural 2 guard.
I love the idea of a college basketball player at a major program that I am taller than. This is fantastic. This is my favorite player on USC's basketball team. Continue.
You know, he's a guy that, unfortunately, he's only a sophomore, and he's our only returning veteran player. So he's got the load on him completely. He's our best ball handler, our really only, you know, skilled ball handler. So he's going to have to play 40 minutes a game, and he's going to have to make sure that he's at the top. He's 2 for 15 last night, 0 for 7 from 3, had great shots. And then down the stretch took the game over. The last 4 minutes, got to the foul line, scored 7 or 8 points. He's going to be a really, really good player, maybe an all-conference player.
How aware do you sense that he is of that pressure to put this much on his shoulders, and how is he reacting?
He understands it perfectly. Mo's a reluctant guy to take credit or overstate his importance, but he knows that if he doesn't play well, we're not winning.
Right. And in turn, Alexis Moore, who's actually more of a natural point guard, is going to be playing more at the 2. How has he been reacting to that switch?
He's 0 for 9 last night. Had good shots.
Only one way to go from here, though.
That's right. He can move right forward. It would be great if he could come along enough where we could play him at the point, but that's probably 15 or 16 games away before he's going to be able to do that.
And then in the meantime, Byron Wesley, what do you think he's capable of as a freshman?
I think Byron Wesley's going to be an excellent player. He made some really big plays in our game last night in crunch time. He's a guy that can score. He's got a great body. He's going to be a lockdown defender like Marcus Simmons eventually. It's going to take him a little bit of time to do that. The good thing with Alexis and Barton is they're going to play 30 minutes a game and grow up in a hurry.
Is he your best defender?
He is right now, probably. He and Mo Jones probably the 2 best.
Now, pick either a non-starter or a role player that you think could make a difference this year in terms of being that X-player type, or could make a difference by not emerging if you really need him to.
The guy that really played well last night, and I probably should have played him more minutes, James Blasek, our other 7-foot kid off the bench, had 6 rebounds in 14 minutes, 4 points, played pretty well. Eventually, if we could play all 3 of those big guys together, he and Dedmon and Fuller, that would put us in a unique position where we have 3 guys of that size in the paint all the time and on the offensive board.
It's basically that Laker lineup of Andrew Bynum, Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom that everybody fantasized for a few years now that we never really saw.
Yeah, probably not quite that level, but
it's all relative.
But it's those guys. If James Blasey comes along like we think he's going to be a real help for us.
How conceivable do you think a lineup like that? Phil Jackson always, I think, was curious about it and intrigued, but never found it really doable, like once you actually got on the court.
To me, it depends on how well Byron Wesley comes along, or Alexis Moore, because if one of them could be a 2 guard and let those 3 other big guys play together, their development is going to depend on one of those guys' development, whether we can play them together or not.
And last question for you. People tend to focus on Pat Hayden's relationship as the new AD through the prism of the football team and Lane Kiffin, but he oversees everything. A year or so into his tenure as AD, what has your relationship been like with him, and what have you noticed in terms of changes with the program?
You know what Pat is? Pat is a straight USC guy, and that's it. He's obviously a brilliant guy. The thing about Pat is he is around so much. He's hands-on. The players, like the student athletes and all the teams, he knows every one of these guys personally. And that says something about an AD. To me, he's the perfect AD for our university at this time. And for me, has been a great guy to work with. He and Steve Lopes, who I deal with all the time, and J.K. McKay, provide us with unbelievable leadership at the top of our administration.
USC head basketball coach Kevin O'Neill, undefeated up to this point, 1-0, 66-59 win over Northridge. Hopefully a big season coming up. And again, keep your eyes on Dwayne Dedmon, because you may not be able to see him after this year if he's going to progress the way people think. Coach, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man. Good job.